What is one issue that we're not talking about enough that we should be talking about more?
Media, mainstream media. I wake up every morning, look on my iPhone, all of the articles. There is no way that every single news article, I mean, it is, they're all negative. And it's like, don't you see a pattern here? We need to talk about the patterns that are going on, bring more attention to them. I think that needs to be fixed. Yeah, I mean, that's what I think really needs to be discussed and just common sense, critical thinking, all of these things.
Here in the UK, I'm working with the Free Speech Union, which is rather like your fire over there. We're going to do a survey of people who have experienced cancellation so that we can tell their stories and we can actually find out from them how this has affected their mental health. Because I think they're a population who have been ostracized, they've been shunned, nobody's listening to them. And we need to listen to them. So I'm hoping over the next few months that we're going to actually run a study to find out from those people, what has their experience of cancellation been like? How does it manifest? Is it bullying? Is it harassment? Is it losing your job, your reputation? How does that impact on your life? How does it impact on your family? And then we can tell those stories. And I think that's something perhaps we need to talk about a bit more. What are the effects on people who are at the wrong end of this, the sharp end of this ideology?
The value of fully experiencing negative emotion.
Hmm.
That's what I would say. Think of trigger warnings. Think of the idea that we're supposed to act in a way that doesn't offend anybody. Both of those ideas suggest a really dysfunctional attitude towards disagreeable feelings. And I think one of the hallmarks of psychological health is what's called affect tolerance. It's what you try to, help a client build up. It's it's what you do in exposure therapy. If someone feels extreme anxiety at the thought of a spider, you slowly, conscientiously, compassionately expose them to the stimulus that causes them anxiety. If you're dealing with someone who has a heck of a father complex or whatever the issue is, you try to allow them to experience a lot of the emotional core of that complex, that thing that they're wrestling with, rather than, to help them run away from it. And, with things like trigger warnings or the idea that we're not supposed to ever offend anyone, it flies in the face of that attitude, that the attitude that says, actually, the difficult emotion, you're supposed to feel that. You're supposed to sit with it. You're supposed to work with it. You're not supposed to blame the external world for causing that emotion in you. You're supposed to really address it. That's the antithesis of what I'm seeing in the culture at large. So I'd like for us to talk about the value and importance of authentically suffering our lives.
I'm interested in crisis of meaning issue. I mean, that's gotten more attention. It's really important. I think faith is really important. And I think that maybe it could be not enduring the current kind of greater interest in religion, maybe Christianity in particular. It might not be enduring if people don't actually find that thing in their heart that they need to connect to be nourished by a real living faith. If it's hollow and it's kind of about culture or superficial things, it's not going to last, I don't think, because it's not going to be rooted in the thing that I think people are ultimately looking for, that can really give them guidance and nourishment. So I'm heartened that there's greater interest in trying to find meaning and maybe a greater interest in faith issues, but I'm concerned that the language that I'm seeing around it often is not right in terms of guiding people to really find that power and connect to it properly. So the tone and the way that that's done it's obviously it's a difficult thing. It's very personal, but that's something that's on my mind as well.
Honestly, I think it's men and women like splitting politically. That I think I don't even know where that goes because like a lot of left-wing women will not date conservative guys, but most guys are going to the right. I'm like, what does this do to families and children and going forward? That's going to be really interesting. And
That's fascinating.
Yeah, because the women are going very clearly to the left and the men are going very clearly to the right. But like, what does that do to a civilization? Some people can have, different politics and get along just fine. But a lot of people, like, they want their partner to agree with them and be on the same team because they want to cheerlead, right? Go our team, boo their team. And everybody does that. It's fun to do. I love it when my team wins and I hate their team and their teams are a bunch of rotten scoundrels. And if your partner's like on the other team, then you're kind of like always like cheering against each other. And actually, the
Yeah.
fertility crisis is really interesting too, because other than a handful of small areas in Africa and the Middle East, everyone's population is collapsing. It's collapsing in South America. I think South Korea is the worst. I think their fertility rate is 0.6.
Owning your own history. So I really adore Viktor Frankl and his book, Man's Search for Meaning. I recommend it to clients that I feel would be able to get what it is giving. And the fact that, okay, let's say you had a hard life. Okay, figure out what you can do about it. It's no one else's trauma but yours. So stop placing your trauma on the world and saying you have to solve this.
I think one foundational thing going on in society that we should talk about more is fatherlessness, and just the need to encourage young men about what a blessing and challenge fatherhood is, because it's so easy for a guy to just walk away. It's so easy to, like, no fault divorce is another thing. That's, yes, we should make divorce impossible when there are cases of abuse, but there's many ways where no fault divorce was a precedent for this whole dismembering of sexuality and gender and families. And it made fatherlessness a much easier thing to do, much greater possibility in a young man's life if they could just walk away from their responsibilities. And the data now about how many issues like depression and economic status and just so many areas of a person's life can be tied to crime, imprisonment, can be tied to fatherlessness.
I think the best thing to talk about is our disappointment and the great and widespread disappointment that certainly in America that I think many people feel. Because I think, who's the comedian? Louis C.K. maybe, who famously said everything is awesome and everybody's unhappy. Yeah. Right? And I don't think that is very much discussed. Like, just this sort of general how can I have a phone that lets me do all this stuff and life is still so disappointing, And I don't think we talk about that almost at all, that we have achieved everything. We've achieved everything you can do on Earth, right? That's why we're talking about going to Mars, as if going to Mars is going to make us less disappointed. And we don't talk about our disappointment at all. I think maybe at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, many people in the 19th century there, but prior to the Civil War in America, there's probably great optimism about what the future would look like. Well, the future's here and everybody's miserable.